When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Hi, I'm John Mallos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV. You're watching us on Comcast, channel 187 and 43.6. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that has been thrown off the front pages, all thanks to Robin Williams, Lauren Bacall, and Iraq, all those tragedies happening all at one time. We're talking about Tony Stewart and what happened on Saturday night in upstate New York. This topic has drawn quite a bit of interest here on Connect with Me. It did on Monday. So 436-ME-TV, option 11. I want you to call in and weigh in. Back in a moment. It is Ask an Expert Day here on Connect with Me, Comcast channel 187, 43.6. We're broadcasting, of course, as usual, from the floor at Ventura TV here in Southeast Fresno. And we're going to tackle a topic today that's been thrown off the front pages, as I mentioned. This incident involving Tony Stewart that took place on Saturday night, upstate New York, at a sprint car race that killed driver. He's 20 years old, Kevin Ward. And we had a lot of interest on this when we talked about it and just spoke about it briefly on Monday. But I want to mention the fact that the reason it got thrown off the front pages is because of the death, obviously, of Robin Williams, which deserved a lot of attention. Then you had the death of Lauren Bacall and what's going on in Iraq. So all of those tragedies going on at the same time over the weekend. The Tony Stewart thing drew a lot of outrage from a lot of different people. And then you had people that defended him, that said, no, he didn't do this on purpose. I want to roll the videotape and refresh your memory on what happened. This is the sprint car race that took place in upstate New York. Videotape you see here from Saturday night. 20-year-old Kevin Ward Jr., he spun against the wall right there. Ward believed it was Stewart who put him into the wall for whatever reason. Ward gets out of his car. Momentarily, you'll see him do that. He'll walk onto the track. Now, remember, he's wearing a dark suit. The lighting is not all that great. Cars are still whizzing by. I'm not sure if the yellow is on. There he is pointing at Stewart. And so cars zooming by one after one. One driver misses him and then boom, right there. We want to freeze it. We don't want to show the hit. That's when Tony Stewart's car hit Kevin Ward Jr., pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital, but Stewart has not been charged. They are not ruling out the possibility that he will be charged with a crime. That, according to today's Fresno Bee and other outlets that I read this morning. The investigation ongoing. Of course, Stewart pulled out of the NASCAR race at Watkins Glen on Sunday. Stewart himself has come unglued many times. He's known to have a temper. He's known to want to get out of his car and have some fisticuffs of his own. Even threw his helmet one time at a passing race car driver when he was pushed out of a race. And so he does have a reputation of having a temper. But did that have anything to do with Saturday night's incident? That's the whole question. That's what's up in the air right now. That's the big debate with this Tony Stewart incident. Live in our studio right now is Steve Faria. He is the owner of Thunder Bowl Raceway in Tulare. You guys are all familiar with that, right? Because it's been there for many years. Steve has owned it for quite a number of years, too. And you might recognize the man to his left. He is Jason Myers, 35 years old, a two-time World of Outlaws champion. He's from Clovis. And he is here along with Steve to offer their expert opinions. Jason knows Tony Stewart, has raced at that track in upstate New York, has raced all around the country. He knows auto racing, as does Steve. You call in, ask the questions, offer up some of your own opinions about what happened. This is still a hot topic, even though it got thrown off the front pages to a certain extent with the death and suicide of Robin Williams. We're back with our program. Don't forget the telephone number. It is right up there on your screen, 436-ME-TV. Hit option 11 and call in. Back in a moment.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
This is an interesting story, and Monday we talked about what kind of an effect this is going to have on Tony Stewart and his racing career. Is it going to be good for him from a public relations standpoint? Steve is here, Jason is here. You're an ex-racer now, but you still race part-time. I got a phone call coming in. Let's take that and we'll get a couple of opinions here. Good morning, caller. Well, you were there. You guys have seen this video. By the way, call back, 436-ME-TV, option 11. We'll take your call. Turn down the sound. You've seen this video numerous times. You know auto racing inside out, as you do. You've been on the track with Tony Stewart. You know him. You've raced at this track in New York. Your observations, because there's a lot of finger pointing at Tony Stewart, people saying he was playing chicken with him, he meant to scare him, that the situation got out of hand, and this is the end result. Jason, let's pick it up with you first.
Well, I mean, all we really have to go off is what we're looking at in the video. And first and foremost, I want to mention that, we don't want to make light of the situation in any way. I mean, a young man lost his life. And we all know that when we get in the car that's possible, but we surely don't think it's going to happen in this way. And I don't pretend to understand the emotions of the family at this point. To lose someone, especially someone so young, is very, very difficult, and nor the emotions of Tony Stewart at this point. I mean, I can't imagine he's sleeping at night right now. I know Tony and know that he's a very, very thoughtful person. That look at what he does for the sport, and whether he's a thoughtful person or not, which I know he is. Anytime you're involved in a tragedy of this nature, I couldn't even begin to imagine the emotions that he's going through. So, all we really have to look at here is the video that everybody's put up, and you kind of look at it and look at some of the facts of the situation. I don't see where there's any intention on Tony Stewart's part for a number of reasons. Number one, there was no contact made between him and Kevin Ward into that corner. I know a lot of people look at that.
How can we tell that? How can we tell?
Because what you see, that is one of the slickest racetracks in the country right there. And the two cars go down in the corner side by side. They both know that they're there. He knows Tony's there. Tony knows Kevin's there. Tony drives across the racetrack.
Here we are right here. Look at the video. Look at the video. How do you know that Stewart didn't put him in the wall? That's an allegation, of course.
Okay, so he gets into the corner here, and what happens is Kevin gets up over the cushion. And when he gets over the cushion, the right rear gets in the marbles, and that track is off camber at the top. So it goes over the berm, and then it actually goes off camber into the wall, which is why you see the car sucked down into the wall.
Yeah. Take a call here. Good morning, caller. What's your question or comment?
Oh, my comment is, first of all, you see in the video, there's no way Tony Stewart did not move his car in any direction to hit this young man. And it's unfortunate, and I bet he just feels awful about it, but there's no way he would ever use his vehicle to hit a person. I've seen him get pissy and take his vehicle and hit another vehicle, but there's no way he would ever do something like that. And I think it's unfortunate that all this finger pointing is going on with no concern of he's got to be taking this awful. It's got to be terrible for him.
Oh yeah,
it's terrible for everybody. It's unfortunate for all of NASCAR for something like this to happen. But
yeah, like Jason said, he's not getting any sleep at night. We can all bet the house on that, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely.
But you can see why. And caller, I appreciate your comments, and call in 436-ME-TV option 11. That's why we're here. You can offer your comments one way or the other, however you feel about it. But Steve, let me turn to you. Can you see why some people would think that Tony Stewart maybe kind of played chicken with him, maybe kind of not hit him on purpose, not intent to kill, obviously, that wasn't the intent, but maybe tried to scare him. Can you see why people would think that because of Tony's past reputation of having a hot temper, being a hothead, wanting to settle the score right now with somebody?
Yeah, if Tony would want to settle a score with somebody, it would be physical. It wouldn't be like that. If Tony had, it'd be a confrontation between two people.
In the pits, right?
Whatever. He'd come talk to you. From everything, the friends that I know him, Jason knows him, and Gary Schelsey and I are really good friends, and knows him very well. Been with him a lot of years. He told me Tony wouldn't do that for love or money, really. He just wouldn't do it. By looking at the video, like Jason said there, that spin out happened between 1 and 2. Which is in the corner. Tony's following that other car, maybe 15, 20 feet behind.
Yeah, not far.
Not far, off to the side. So when they're coming around a corner, you come around in a circle. This kid's blocked. You can't see him. I mean, there's no way you could see that kid. You might see him down straightaway, but couldn't see him before. So.
And look at the facts of the accident. Tony has no reason to be upset with the kid. They didn't get together. I know it looks like there might have been a little bit of a touch, but there's not. From what I can see in the video, they didn't even touch. So Tony comes around the racetrack, the yellow's out. Tony's got no idea that this kid's mad. Tony's got no reason to be mad. They weren't bumping. They weren't using each other up. And when you come around the track, I would venture to say, would be my guess, that Tony never even saw him.
Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I've seen that video numerous times where he hits the guy. It looks like that car jerked to the right to hit him on purpose. That's the way I see it.
Okay.
I was watching it numerous times when they showed it on the news, and the car jerked to the right just as he got up to the guy.
Okay.
So I think he hit him on purpose.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your comment and your opinion. See, that's some of the opinion I was talking about. But talk about being a race driver in one of those sprint cars and how difficult it is to control, especially in those conditions, low light conditions, a slick track, and then all of a sudden you see this person in a split second in a dark suit come out in front. What are the conditions like in that cockpit of that vehicle?
Well, I think some things. First, let's address what the caller said. I think when you see the car turn right, that's when you're seeing the collision between the front tire and Kevin Ward. And when the car hits something, it's going to turn the car that direction. Anything, if you put your hand out the window, if it hits something, it's going to pull you that direction. So I think that's what people are seeing. I mean, that's my opinion of what you're seeing there. And, you know, if you look at all the facts of the situation, Tony has no reason to be upset. He comes around the track. The cars are barely into yellow. At that point, those cars are probably still rolling 40, 50 miles an hour. Who in their right mind would run out in the road out in front of the studio here with 40 and 50 mile an hour cars?
Yeah.
Obviously, Kevin Ward was a little bit heated, and he jumped out in the track. Tony's coming around there. The caution's out. He probably, at that point, may have an idea that Kevin got up over the top of the track, but not necessarily sure. And you come around, you don't expect the driver to be not just standing out in the track, but, you know, running out. Kevin was kind of jumping around. Yeah, he was jumping around, coming at the car there.
Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. Well, you were there. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, he came down in exactly where they're racing. I mean, he's not on the fringe. He's right in the middle of the groove. I mean, that's where he dumped, right in the middle of the groove.
Right.
The first car had to dodge him. That should tell everybody what they need to know right there. The first car dodged him, and he had a perfect vision for him ahead of him.
And here's what's very difficult is Kevin Ward had a helmet on. Where as a driver, when you have a helmet on and you're walking around, you do not have good peripheral vision. You don't have vision of anything below you. You're looking out of a helmet. You're looking out of a portal. So you have the vision out of that portal, but you don't have
the same vision as you do in your regular automobile.
Without a helmet on. I mean, right here, you can see below you. You can see above you. You can see all around. You don't have that vision. So his vision was impaired at that point.
Right.
And he's moving around on a racetrack with moving vehicles. Tony's coming around the track with other cars in front of him, and you can't see through the car in front of you. It's got wings. It's got all things on it. You can't see through it.
Yeah.
You can't see out of the right side of a sprint car. So this is a very, very bad situation that just turned tragic.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
The gentleman is right. That guy, you know, he didn't have no right to get out of his car and go in the middle of the road. You got to be nuts to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, don't get out of your car and it's dark, and how's the guy going to see you?
Yeah, you have a point. We've all mentioned that before here on the program, both on Monday and today. I appreciate the phone call. We got to take a break, and then we're going to come back with more of Steve and Jason here on Connect with Me. Your calls are important. We're talking about Tony Stewart again here, as you see in front page of the, well, not front page, but third page of the sports section today. Criminal charges still could be possible for Tony Stewart. We're back in just a moment.
Considering solar? Whether you're ready to buy now or just exploring your options, the consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
We're back here on Connect with Me. Call coming in, I guess, here. We're going to take it. Well, got to be patient there. 436-MeTV, option 11. So the B says today, criminal charges still possible for Stewart. I want to get a comment from you, Steve.
I don't think that'll happen. I don't think that you can prove that the intent was for him to run over that fella. I think that it was just an accident, a tragic accident caused by him getting out of the car and coming down on the racing surface. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. I watch a lot of wrecks, a lot of racing. I've never seen a person do what this kid did. I've seen him get mad.
You've seen a lot of drivers get angry and lose it, but not to the point where they want to kill with intent to kill another driver, right?
No, I've never seen that. I've never seen one try to run one over.
How about you, Jason?
No, exactly. Like, you mentioned intent to kill, and I agree with Steve. I've never even seen anyone swerve at somebody. I mean, I've seen guys go down the racetrack and bump each other and this and that, race car to race car, but, never a human body. I mean, we all know what these things are capable of, and Kevin, Tony, that they both know too.
When you're in the cockpit, you're worried about your own safety. Am I right?
You're not. You are. Yeah, you're absolutely.
And you're looking to win the race. You're not looking to go out and hurt somebody.
No, you're not looking to hurt somebody. I mean, you're there to compete at it, and
you're all professionals. I mean, that's the thing.
And it's like I said, it's everybody's there to race, and you don't anticipate some of these things that happen. I mean, if you look at the things that happen here, you don't anticipate a driver to be not just on the racetrack, but in the middle of the groove, dodging cars. I mean, you literally saw him dodge 2 or 3 cars, and then Tony comes along, and Tony's car clipped him. And the reason that Tony's car clipped him is because that's the car that Kevin was going after. You might say, well, why didn't the other cars clip him? Well, because he didn't jump out in front of the other cars. He was looking for Tony when he came around, and when he did, he jumped out in front of him.
He waited for Tony to come around.
He waited, and then he went to jump away, and he didn't quite get away.
Yeah. Another call coming in. Good morning. You're on Connect with Me. Go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen. There's just a couple things that bother me about this whole incident. Is one, you hear on the video, you hear the car rev. And secondly, Tony's behavior right after. If I accidentally hit somebody, I'd have been there before the rescue or the EMT guys. I would have been out of that car. I would have been on top of him. Dude, I'm sorry. What did I do? And we haven't heard that. Tony never fell on his sword here. And so it's kind of like, I don't know what Michael and the other gentleman how they would respond if they accidentally hit somebody, but I kind of made a joke online the other day. If Tony Stewart was driving down the street and you were walking on the sidewalk, would you be scared? And so I don't know. I'll listen to your answer on that on television.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, how would you feel? I was going to ask you that question later in the program, but if you accidentally hit somebody, how would you feel as a driver? You'd
be in shock. You'd be in shock that it even happened. I think. I mean, would you go over there and help? I don't know. I'd be paralyzed that happened.
And I
personally
think Tony Stewart, to a certain extent, is paralyzed right now.
Sure.
Mentally, that is. He doesn't know which way to go, which way to turn. He's dropped out of, how many races so far? 2?
I think so.
I think so, yeah. And so, Steve, what would you tell a guy like Tony Stewart if you were to talk to him?
I'd try to encourage him to get over this as fast as he could. I mean, that's his livelihood. What I know about Tony Stewart, and Jason knows this too, Anytime there's been a tragedy of any sort in the racing community that he's around or involved with, Tony is a very benevolent person. I mean, money's not an object. He throws money at it. He tries to help everybody. So I find it very strange that people are trying to say that he would commit an act like this. I mean, I really find it hard to believe.
And Tony is a star in auto racing. And yes, Tony's maybe had
he's a mega star.
He's a mega star, and he's maybe had some altercations with other drivers. Who hasn't in the course of their career? Tony's get on TV because he's a star, but who has not?
Caller, go ahead. Caller? Yeah, caller.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I disagree with your guests respectfully.
Sure.
Something tells me that there's just something really, really wrong here, and it seems like people are ignoring it. And I'm not blaming them either, but this just seems something odd. And I can't help but to feel that there was. I don't believe there was murder in his heart. I don't believe that, but I do believe that there was something other than what people are saying on the surface. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What's your reaction to people that call in and say, hey, you're in the racing industry, you're trying to protect Tony Stewart, you're just trying to put a positive spin on this. I kind of get that feeling or that drift from that caller.
Sure.
I don't know the circumstances. I wasn't there. I don't know what's going through Tony Stewart's mind. But what's your reaction when you hear a caller?
Well,
disagrees with you.
Everybody has an opinion, and everybody's entitled to one.
Yeah.
My opinion is just based on what I know about the sport and about the cars. And I'm not even going to say it's really based on what I know about Tony Stewart, because I don't know what was in his head, and I don't think any of us are qualified. No one is qualified to know that.
Yeah,
or what was in Kevin Ward's head, for that matter. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
All we can say is I watched that, and I don't see any intent, and I really feel that opinion that there was intent is emotional, and I think that's understandable to have those emotions when someone has lost his life. But I think it's an emotional opinion. And that would be my opinion of it, respectfully.
Caller, what's your question or comment?
Yeah, how are you doing today?
Good, good.
I was just going to say, years and years ago, I couldn't stand Tony Stewart because of his attitude. And I've been a NASCAR fan for a long time. But when he became an owner, he kind of settled down a little bit. And he didn't quite have that mentality, I guess you could say. But I know, Tony Stewart would have confronted him later or just threw a helmet at him. And he would have never killed him intentionally. He was a professional driver, and there is no way that he would have ever wanted to do something like that on the track because he was a professional. And I don't know if that really solves anything, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your opinion. That's why we're here, for you to call in and offer up and ask a question. Let me ask you again, Jason, do you think that there'll be criminal charges filed in this case? I know you're not close to it, but from what you saw, you're not an attorney, I know. You weren't there, I know.
So what you're saying is I'm highly unqualified to answer this question?
You're highly unqualified to answer the question, but I still want your opinion on what you think might happen.
Well, I don't believe so. I don't see anything criminal. I don't see anything criminal there. I think based on the facts of what is possible, the vision that's available, I don't see any intent whatsoever. There's no ounce of me that believes that there was any possible intent there whatsoever to even scare him. I don't see that at all. I don't believe that Tony ever saw him.
Do you think, from your perspective, being a driver, do you think you have a biased opinion?
No, I don't.
You don't? Are you trying to look at this objectively?
I'm trying to look at this objectively from, if that was me driving around in that race car, what would I hope that the opinion was?
As a professional driver.
Off of what I saw, because that could have happened to me or anybody else. And let's be honest, if it would have happened to even myself or anyone else, it wouldn't have made news the way it did. It's because it's Tony Stewart.
We're here talking about it because it's Tony Stewart. It's Tony Stewart. There's no question.
Which the good news about that is maybe there'll be something done in the sport about not allowing drivers to get out of their cars and do something like that.
I don't think you can ever prevent that. I mean, you can't prevent someone from getting angry, having emotion, losing it at one particular time or another. You can set down on any kind of, I mean, it boils down to common sense. Kevin Ward should never have gotten out of that car. and
Definitely.
walked or ran onto that track pointing at Tony Stewart. Would you agree?
I agree, but I'm a drag racer, been a drag racer all my life. So I'm talking, and Jason knows this too. To be a race car driver, you have to have a passion for the sport and a passion for driving. So you have to have some. If you get fired up, so I'm just telling you,
got to have a passion for winning too.
That's right. You have to have a passion for that. So I mean, it's just the way it is.
All right, another call coming in. Good morning. Who is on the line, and what's your question or comment?
Well, I'm watching this here about the accident they had on the racetrack.
Yes.
And what really upsets me is these people are not professionals, okay? And it's a tragedy that the kid was killed. It's a big tragedy. But if they would have followed the rules like they're supposed to, he should have never got out of his car. So he made the mistake of getting out of his car. Now they're trying to make it a federal case when you're out there. Tony Stewart didn't have no intentions of doing what he did. No intentions. That was just an accident that should be considered. All of this talk and everything else has a lot of people involved, and it's a tragedy. But there is no way in the world any of these drivers would do that deliberately.
All right, ma'am.
It's just not right.
Thank you for the call. Running short on time. We got to take a break here on Connect with Me. We are talking with Steve Faria. He is the owner of Thunderbolt Race Track in Tulare. If you're a racing fan here in the Central Valley, and I know there are thousands of them, you are familiar with that. You are also familiar with our other guest, Jason Myers, a two-time World of Outlaws champion. Glad that both are along here. Your phone calls, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in a moment.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Such a tragic event. I know there are thousands and thousands of racing fans here in the Central Valley, and we could go down the list of how many great race car drivers have come out of this area, the Central Valley. The Vukovich brothers, obviously, I could just name that right off the top of my head. Agajanian, another racing family here in the Central Valley. I've been to Indy several times, been to that race. Actually got behind the wheel of a sprint car a couple of times way back in the 80s, and don't ever want to do it again, actually. So let's get back to this Tony Stewart thing. I want to put his picture up on the screen. How well did you know him, and what can you tell us about the person, Tony Stewart?
Well, I don't, this is I think, a tough time to have an opinion about somebody. From what I know of Tony is a grassroots racer that started with nothing, and I know a few stories of Tony, standing outside the fence begging people to let him drive race cars, and finally getting that opportunity and proving his abilities and moving up through the ranks the hard way. Not because of money, not because of the silver spoon or anything like that, but really making it the hard way and making it to the top levels. And I think the most impressive part that's about Tony is what he's given back to the grassroots, what he's given back to where he's come from.
What has he given back?
Well, Tony has fielded over the last several years, several cars in the lower divisions that he came from. In the World of Outlaw Sprint Car Series, he fields 2 cars. He's fielded several cars in the USAC Series, both in the midget sprint cars and Silver Crown. And, if it wasn't for him, I don't know if some of those series would even still exist at this point. Tony has been instrumental in keeping those alive.
Financially keeping them alive.
By fielding race cars, by putting drivers in seats. He's purchased racetracks. I can't tell you how many times Tony goes and signs autographs and just to help a series out, to help a racetrack out. And, I mean, really, short track racing would definitely not be what it is today without Tony Stewart. And I don't know if some things would even be around without him.
Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi,
Turn down the sound.
Tyler Bray here, and I just want to say that I'm really sorry for the guy that died in the crash. Yeah, really.
This is his dad calling, and my kid used to want to be a race car driver when he grows up.
Okay.
Now he's not so sure. Now I have a question for you. Your guest Jason was saying that his theory is that that Ward went up far enough out of the margin and got into the marbles. I thought it was a dirt track. When you say marbles, are you talking about dirt clods or what exactly? I can see him. It looks like he goes up on the bumper or the cushion, and then, of course, boom, he's out of control. But are there marbles on dirt track? Here's my question.
Yeah, you have a groove. So if you get above the groove, you have marbles, and the tires do not stick to those. The tires actually only stick to where the surface is clean or where there's kind of moisture.
Not actual marbles.
Yeah, there's actually it's actually the.
I just want to clarify. They're not marbles. Marbles.
No.
Rolled up dirt balls like marbles.
Rolled up dirt, or on that track,
and
which is very slick.
Not stick to that portion of the track. They only stick to the groove, right?
Right, and as soon as the tire gets over that and into those, it's like, we call it marbles because it's like marbles. It's ice.
Right,
when you hit it,
it's
you lose control of the race car at that point.
Yeah, and you've done that many times, I'm sure.
Several.
It's really loose dirt, really rolled up, really loose dirt.
Does that make the car fishtail, Steve?
It makes it fishtail. It loses traction, and it loses adhesion to the track, so it has no control. That's why he spun around, except it lost control of it. Basically.
It's like hitting a patch of black ice.
Right.
Right. It's amazing. So getting back to Tony Stewart and his generosity toward, the short track circuit. Financially, he's offering a lot of services to, various drivers. He himself came from nothing. But how well did you know him?
I know him as good as anybody else that races with him. Tony and I, we don't have lunch, we don't hang out, and I feel as I'm answering this question,
but your observation of him.
My observation of him is he is a very, very talented racer that has driven across numerous different types of race cars. He can drive about anything, and he's a generous person to the sport. And I think, unfortunately, because
he gives back,
he does, and that doesn't. I want to be careful here because that doesn't matter in this situation. All that matters in this situation is that a bad accident happened, and what are the facts of that accident, and is there intent? And based on what we see, I don't, what kind of person Tony is. I mean, other than when people are leaning, I think one problem here is people are looking at, well, Tony's a very passionate racer, therefore he had intent. I don't think this situation has anything to do with what kind of person Tony Stewart is.
Okay, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
John.
Speak up.
I was saying, you think about the 5 o'clock rush hour, and that's what this man did, expect to get hit. I mean, you can't stop. Even though you may slow down and try to avoid with a person, it's sort of rough to stop, even on dirt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this gentleman shouldn't have did what he did, but he did out of anger. I understand that, but maybe he should have been a rule war. If you get out of your car, maybe suspend you for maybe 2 or 3 races, maybe to prevent these things, make them lose a title or whatever it may be.
All right. Yeah.
I just want to say thanks.
You make a good point, Steve. You own Thunderbolt Racetrack in Tulare. It's impossible to just stop on a dirt track like that, or any track for that matter.
You have a yellow. That was a yellow flag incident, so the cars kept running. If that car, if Kevin Ward's car would have flipped over, been a red flag incident, and all the cars would have stopped instantly. When red flag comes out, they stop instantly. But it was a yellow flag incident.
But you can't stop instantly in a sprint car, can you?
Well, what Steve's saying is if the red flag would have come out,
all the cars would
stop.
They would stop. Everything would stop. There would be no rolling. Nothing would have rolled except the fire crews.
Okay.
And that's how that works. But the problem I see here is what Kevin Ward did, which is caused a tragic accident and cost him his life. If that would happen at most racetracks, he'd have been black flagged.
Yeah.
Because he's
You're not supposed to get out of the car.
Well, they get out of the car, some get out. Most of them stay in the car when it's on yellow because they'd come hooked him up, towed him out, he'd put a tire on that car. Like we
Unless
talked about.
but see, you can't say it because what if that car starts on fire? What if the car's on fire?
Well, but
you've got to get out.
Certainly.
But
you don't run into the racing surface.
Yeah, you don't run into the groove of the track where the cars are going.
But that is the instant.
And if there is a fire, the red flag comes out.
Right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are certain circumstances when the driver will get out. This, what we're seeing here, is not one of those instances.
Typically what would happen here is the driver would not get out of the car, the tow truck would hook up to the car, take it to the work area because they have the chance to fix it and come back out.
Yeah. Caller, what's your question? Go ahead.
You know, on this Tony Stewart incident happened, accident or not, whatever, he's always had even with the media, he's always had a bad rap as far as, hot-headed and all that. Do you think that might have been a problem that pertaining to the accident? Because, media seems to tend to, point fingers, and I'm not one to point fingers. I wasn't there or whatever, but you get in media feelings that he has a short fuse, and there was no accident. So I would like to ask both of them. I mean, I know that they're not going to come out and say, do you think it's just an accident?
Okay. I think they kind of answered that already, but go ahead again, guys, real quick, and then we'll go to break.
Well, I'll answer. From my opinion, the media has
exploited it.
I don't want to exploited is a good term because I don't want to say blown out of proportion. This is a tragic accident where somebody lost their life, and it definitely is a very bad situation. But I think because it's Tony Stewart, it's been a little bit blown out of proportion. I think if this was a local race where this happened and it wasn't Tony Stewart, I don't think it would have made it past local news. If it even made it there, let's be honest.
Probably not.
Hopefully in the end it will come out, of what it was. In my opinion, that it was just a horrific accident, and maybe some good can come of this in some way.
Steve, pick up on that.
I just think it's a comedy of errors started by Kevin Ward. If you want to know the truth, it's a comedy of errors. He made the first error by getting out of the car and going down on the racing service. And when he went down the racing service, it should have been a red flag thrown right there, and the starter should have seen it if he seen it, because he really put everybody in detriment and harm's way, basically.
Yeah.
So
himself mainly.
Yes, himself. Yeah. God forbid. I mean, I would have to be his parents. This is horrible. I mean, you couldn't ask for a worse tragedy. But putting blame on somebody that didn't even start it, basically, they claim that he hit him and started the. If you look at the video, the car never touched it. So I have a hard time with this because I think it's just a horrific accident caused by bad judgment.
Yeah. All right, we're talking with Steve Faria. He is the owner of Thunderbolt Racetrack down in Tulare. You're familiar with that if you're a race fan. And Jason Myers, you know who he is, 35 years old, two-time World of Outlaw champion here on Connect With Me today, talking about Tony Stewart. We're back with our program. Offer up a comment if you will. Want to call in? Do so. Back in a moment.
Don't you ever hit me again!
Chief, I think we got a hit on our
Me TV Fresno, now on Comcast Channel 187.
He enters up towards that white chalk line in turn number 4. A little bit of an edge for Schuhart as the green flag comes out, and we are racing.
Schuhart into turn 1. Schatz goes to the cushion. Down low, it's Darren Pittman. Schuhart leads down the backstretch. Schatz right behind him. Pittman third. In fourth, Paul McMahon. Brad Sweet fifth. Logan Schuhart will lead the opening lap of the Thunderbolt Raceway.
Schuhart, Schatz, then Pittman, then McMahon, then Brad Sweet, your top 5 as they roll through turns 1 and 2.
Birthday boy Joey Saldana celebrating his 42nd here tonight at the Thunderbolt Raceway. Took a peek to the inside but couldn't do anything with Trey Starks. Schatz goes to the bottom. Schuhart on the top. Side by side for the lead. Schuhart fends off the champion, and Sweet gaining ground quickly on both of them.
Brad Sweet's about to make this a 3-car deal off of turn number 4. He shows Donnie Schatz the front tires. DJ Netto off the pace to the inside. That forces Schatz to take evasive action, and Pittman goes into second.
Darren Pittman from 4th to 2nd. Now Schatz back to the inside of the crate. Clips number 9. They'll race for that spot. Right there with them is Brad Sweet. Netto's got problems. Schuhart's gotten by him. Schuhart really extending the lead.
You know, they make it look so easy. Getting behind the wheel of a sprint car and just going around and around and around makes you think, oh, anybody can do that. Yeah, right. Try it sometime. You were looking at video of Thunderbolt Racetrack in Tulare. That was March the 14th during the World of Outlaws. Jason, you were in that race. How did that go for you?
It wasn't good. You know we got a really good track record at Tulare, but this March was not good to us. But it's a Tulare is one of the toughest racetracks on the entire circuit throughout the country. There's drivers that actually don't like coming to the place for the fact of it's so difficult. Not because it's not a great racetrack. It's a phenomenal racetrack, but it's a
one of the better ones, right?
It's a place where you got to get elbows up, and I mean, at the end of the night, you are spent both physically, mentally, and
it's a demanding racetrack.
It's a very demanding racetrack. It's a great racetrack for the fans, though. I love the place. It's probably it's my home track, but it's my favorite track in the entire country because the racing. They do such a great job at the racetrack there that no matter when you go there, it's great racing.
Yeah. Steve, you've owned this place for what, 20 years?
Yeah, we put it together. We built it, actually.
20 years. You got the Trophy Cup coming up when?
In October.
In October.
15, 16, 17.
For all those non-racing fans, explain what that is and how that's going to go in October.
That's a Make-A-Wish race, and we donate $100,000 from that race every year to Make-A-Wish. It's so the racers and the fans really support this because it's for such a great cause.
Yeah.
And we'll have 100 cars there this year.
Wow, and I appreciate you coming here. Talk about his involvement in racing the last 20 years. He owns the track out there. How does he treat the drivers? Pretty good?
Well, you talk about giving back. The racetrack promoters, that is one of the toughest businesses there is. I've promoted a few races because it's really hard to make money and it's really easy to lose it.
Is it hard to please the drivers?
No, it's just there's not a lot in it, and there's so much effort that goes into promoting the show, to putting it on, to preparing the track, to making sure that the fans are happy, that the drivers are happy, that everybody is happy. And
it's a headache.
And if you get one little sprinkle of rain that day and the fans don't show up, you've already spent all the money and you lose your tail. So
you go rain or shine, right?
No, we don't. We cannot actually race in the rain.
You can't. Not in sprint cars.
Cannot.
Okay.
So that is the biggest. If you could put a dome over the racetrack, it might be a little more lucrative sport. But
you got the money to do that, don't you?
Oh, yeah, right.
But it really, Steve said he built the track. Not only has he built the track, Steve's got one of the #1 fire and safety crews in the country. And it's safety first with them. They spent a lot of money here about a year or two ago replacing the front wall to make it safer for not only the drivers but the fans as well. And it's just I've grown up racing there. I've raced different kinds of cars there. And when I'm not racing, when I don't have a ride for a weekend, or I still take my family down there, we enjoy the races. It's just a great place to go, a great place to have fun and spend time with the family.
You probably know Brian Araki, don't you?
Very well.
Very well, and you do too, right? Yeah, he was a guest here with his son. He was here with his son,
with Colby.
About a year ago. Yeah, Colby was here. There is Thunderbolt again. That was March 14th, and there is the racetrack. You can kind of talk over this and explain what this was. The 14th. Was this what night was it? Was this Saturday night?
I believe it was Saturday.
It was Saturday night. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, who won this race?
I couldn't even tell you, to be honest with you.
You don't remember that far back, see?
Yeah,
you don't really care, do you?
I just want to prepare the racetrack, and I want everybody to. Oops.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Put their cars back in the trailer, not tore up. My biggest deal is have a great race for the fans and the racers, and not them tear up their equipment.
How much emphasis do you put on safety out there?
Well, when he built this track, and this track was built on tragedy. How we did this. I had a cousin of mine, and we're all partners in the farming industry.
Yeah.
And he was a mini sprint racer, and he got killed in a farming accident. And my uncle took it very hard. And talked to my dad. This was a little mini sprint track, and talked to my dad about getting my uncle fired up again. So that's how we ended up with this thing.
Wow. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for the promoter and the racer out there.
Sure, go ahead.
Regarding the Tony Stewart incident, I love Tony Stewart, don't get me wrong, but isn't there some kind of rule unless your car's on fire, you don't approach the other race cars during the caution when they're in motion? That's what I wanted to ask.
There is no rule, but yes, there ought to be.
It's an unwritten rule.
Kind of an unwritten rule, yes. And how do you, like you mentioned earlier, even if there was a rule, how do you still prevent it? In the time of passion, people do things, whether that are against the rules. So it's like you said, it's an unwritten rule. Just the fact of that these things are dangerous, and you don't get out it's kind of, is there a rule? Well, I guess there is a rule that you can't run across ongoing traffic, but you know,
well,
it doesn't mean that people still don't do it.
Isn't that common sense? But when you get angry, common sense goes out the window. Let's face it, you've become angry at one point or another. You have on the, I'm sure you've lost your temper on the racetrack a couple of times. Once or twice.
But you got to control it. I mean, it's a dangerous sport, and you've got to control your temper. It's very important that you do that.
Right. Another call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just turned the TV on, so I assume this is about the Tony Stewart thing, and I hope it is anyway. And my question is there's radio communication with these drivers nowadays, and that's true for the sprint car as well, I think. But and if that's the case, you know, they were saying it's real hard and difficult to see while you're in a sprint car, but if somebody's on the radio and you just knock that person off the track, the pit crew guy is going to say, yeah, Tony, he's out of the car and he's waiting for you. So obviously that should have been known, and and that communication probably should be available. They send those pit talk squawks back and forth all the time with NASCAR, but I don't know if that's the same deal with Sprint Cup. I'm sure Tony has the money to have a radio to talk with his pit crew, and that was my question.
Caller, you still there? You still there?
Excuse me?
Yeah, turn him up. Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. Jason just said there is no radio communication between the driver and the pits in a sprint car race.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's prohibited or whether some people do, some people don't. I don't know. No, I know in NASCAR and other forms of racing they have radio communication between the driver and the pit crew.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for calling. I appreciate it. The reason there's no communication because what? Money?
It's prohibited. It's something
because why?
Because of
pushing people all the way.
Pushing people up because of, you know, we're only a 30-lap race. We're not a 500-mile race where you need to communicate with your crew about setup. When you leave the pit area, it's driver against driver at that point. So there wasn't really a need for it. We did have them for a couple of years back in around maybe 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. And you had people blocking and doing things that just were prohibitive to good racing. So they took it out of the sport. We do have, the only radio communication we have is the drivers wear, and I don't know if this would have been the case that night. Most all tracks do it now, but you wear a one-way radio receiver that the officials can talk to you.
Yeah.
So, but you're relying on the official at that point. Typically, the only thing they really communicate to you is a lineup. They may call that the yellow flag is out from time to time, but it just depends on where you're at and what the officials actually call. Yeah. Typically, it's just to help us line up.
Okay, we're talking with Steve Faria. He is the owner of Thunderbolt Racetrack in Tulare, and Jason Myers, a two-time World of Outlaw champion, here on Connect with Me. Back with your phone calls and our guest in a moment.
The consultants at Solar Negotiators are here to help you. A call to Solar Negotiators is like calling 5 solar companies at once. You see, when local established solar contractors have gaps in their schedule, they call Solar Negotiators to fill them. Right now, get 5 years of panel cleaning and maintenance or $1,000 off your new solar panels. So stop wasting your time searching and call Solar Negotiators, because when contractors compete for your business, you win.
So we're back here on the program. We got to put up Kevin Ward's picture because he lost his life. 20-year-old driver, sprint car driver, run over by Tony Stewart. At this point, it's being ruled an accident, a tragic accident. And we don't know at this point if criminal charges are going to be filed. We still have not heard from the DA. There's still, this is an ongoing investigation. At this point, when I say ongoing investigation, and Kevin Ward tragically lost his life. He's a 20-year-old kid. It's a crying shame. There's no question. But what could they possibly be investigating 3 or 4 days after the event happened in your mind, Jason?
Well, okay, there's a couple of facts to that. This happened in the state of New York. The state of New York and the state of New Jersey are different than anywhere else in the country. The tracks are heavily governed by the police department, by the local law enforcement. So I don't know how this would have exactly gone in another state, but I know because it's in that state, they're much more involved in it. So that's probably part of it.
What are they investigating? They're out at the track looking at the scene where the accident took place. Are they looking at tire marks, tread marks? What are they looking for?
There's not, I wouldn't say that there's much to look at other than what the video is, or maybe they can look at the race cars. I think they did impound the vehicles, if I remember. So
yeah.
what is it, about a year ago when Jason Leffler was killed in New Jersey. That car was impounded, and it was quite a few days before they really came out with their official release and things from that. And hopefully they're taking the necessary precautions just to make sure they have it right before they publicly say anything, because, and I think that's the best case scenario, hopefully.
You were 20 years old at one time, so were you, so was I. So as a 20-year-old race car driver, it's an aggressive sport. It's very passionate. There's a lot of emotion. There's sometimes tempers flare. The object is to win the race. If you were to go back in time and try to counsel this young man, 20-year-old Kevin Ward, what would you tell him?
Well, I mean, I would tell him that first and foremost, you got to learn you got to control your temper. And everybody gets angry. Believe me, I think probably as angry as anybody, but I was told,
especially if somebody puts you in the wall.
When I was a young kid growing up, I was told if you get out and throw your steering wheel, throw your helmet, we'll park you. So I lived and died by those rules, and grew up, and I think that kind of taught me how to control that. And unfortunately, in this case, and I don't want to say anything bad about somebody, but
No,
I
neither
think
do
this
I,
is a
but-
bad situation where temper's got the best of Kevin Ward, and he put himself in a very bad position and tragically lost his life because of it.
Yeah. Well, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say, looking at that picture you just showed of the young man, that's a total Tony Stewart fan. He's wearing the Tony Stewart orange and everything, and it even makes it more tragedy. But what I wanted to comment on was, since this thing happened, you haven't heard, the tragedy in the racing world. No, it's a Tony Stewart thing. It's a Tony Stewart thing, and that's sad that the media is going after Tony Stewart like that. And any other time it would be there's been a tragedy in the racing world, and it's just, it hurts my heart. And that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, what else can you say?
Couldn't agree more.
He could have been a Tony Stewart fan. You never know. He's 20 years
He
old.
could have been the next Tony Stewart too.
He could have been. We don't know his
We don't know
talent.
that, so that's the whole thing. I mean, it's really sad that this happened, and it's tragic. I mean, could you put it? Just tragic, basically.
All right, caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate on what the young man was saying about controlling your temper for the 20-year-old. What is his past history of getting out of control? We know what Tony Stewart's past history is of getting out of control, throwing helmets at cars, claiming that he's going to run somebody over next time. He smashed his NASCAR into somebody else's car after the race. There's a repeated anger management issue there with Tony Stewart. Is there the same go for this 20-year-old? Or what was the past anger management with this kid, or is this the first time he's ever gotten that angry with somebody who is trying to knock him into the wall a couple times?
I have no idea. I don't know the history of Kevin Ward's racing career, and I don't know if you do, Jason.
No, and that's really, I agree with the caller before. That's what's really unfortunate about this situation. A young man lost his life, and nowhere is there any talk about what he was, what he could have been capable of. It's all about that Tony Stewart killed him. Not a car driven by Tony Stewart struck him. It's really, it's really sad what the headlines have been. And of course, like, I understand media. That's what sells newspapers, unfortunately. But it's just really sad what this has become, because at the end of the day, this is a tragic loss of a young man in the racing world, and certainly, just a very, very bad situation.
Steve, what do you think this will do to Tony Stewart's career, whether he's charged or not?
That's hard to say. I mean, it depends if the sponsors think he's a detriment to their business, that it's going to hurt him. And the other thing is, I don't know how Tony's going to take this personally. I mean, this may affect him personally, that he'll never drive again.
You think that's possible, Jason?
I think, I really like what Steve said there. I mean, I don't think at this point, don't get me wrong, in our world, the sponsors matter. I mean, our careers don't exist without
everything.
them. But I think in a situation like this, and even knowing that the sponsors that are behind Tony are, the great companies, what matters here is obviously the loss of Kevin Ward, and can Tony recover from this? It's when a police officer shoots someone in a shooting, there's several weeks of counseling after that, because it's not humanly natural to take a human life. So when something like this happens, Tony's, I would say has a long road ahead of him.
2 lives have been affected. 1 life was lost. We don't know how Tony Stewart's life is going to be for the rest of this the time, whether it be his racing career or his life in general. It has changed forever. We don't know how and to what extent at this point. The sponsors being secondary, I think the sponsors at this point, Jason, you agree with me on this, I don't know. I think they're taking a wait-and-see attitude.
Well, I would think that they would take not only a wait-and-see, but also a supportive attitude of, it's a real funny world how this all works. Opinions matter because those people sponsor those race cars because they're trying to sell product to those people that have those opinions. So it's a very, it's a real business situation, unfortunately. And that's what's very, very difficult about this situation is you have a tragedy that really that's all this should be about is the tragedy. But all the business gets wrapped up inside of it as well because it was Tony Stewart. So
it's image.
Difficult, very difficult.
The sponsors are worried about image, right, Steve?
Exactly. And like I said about Tony Stewart, I mean, he's 43 years old, so he's accomplished what he's accomplished. I mean, he's a great race car driver, drive any kind of car. At 43, this could be a big hurdle in his life from here because, I mean, he was out there just to have fun. He wasn't out there to win.
Yes, yeah, he didn't care about winning the race.
He just wanted to run some more. I mean, he likes running those sprint cars. He said that's his favorite car. So this is just such a tragedy. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'd hate to put myself in those parents' shoes. I mean, there's no winners here. This thing is a complete loss.
Complete loss on all sides.
And for racing in general. Period. It's loss everywhere.
For Tony Stewart being such a popular, well-known race car driver in NASCAR, driving in a race like this, sprint cars, going down a step, is it kind of just like taking batting practice, prepping for the next day's race?
For Tony, it's his hobby.
Because he loves it, right?
He loves it. He absolutely loves it, and he goes to work on Sunday and he plays the rest of the week, and this is his hobby. He absolutely loves it.
So being on the sprint car racetrack was like a hobby for him.
Absolutely.
Wow. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just want to chime in one more time. I never was at the racetrack, so I only have an opinion from what I've seen and what I've heard. And that is, I don't think Tony Stewart intended to hit this kid, let alone kill him, but he did take him out. And from what I gather, he took him out before, and they've had other conflicts from before. And giving the egos that these drivers have. This kid had an ego. He got out of the car, and he's going to show who's what. Tony Stewart's had his ego. He goes toe-to-toe with Joey Logano, et cetera, et cetera. And I think his ego, personally, he went to swerve for the guy. I've seen a picture on the computer today of what little visibility you have. They have an in-car camera picture. But you know what? If you look out the corner of your eye, you can see way up into the turn 4, way ahead of you. And and it's a yellow flag. But anyway, I don't think he intended to hit this guy, but I don't think Tony Stewart should ever get in a race car again. He should be a car owner. He should step out of the race car.
Okay, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. I want to roll that videotape one more time. And Jason, since you have raced at that track, you've been there, you know the conditions, I want you to talk specifically. We've already talked about the fact that it's a slick track. We know that. It's a short track. I want to talk about the lighting. We have 1 minute left to talk about the bad lighting at that track in New York.
Well, I mean, it's a track that's very dark. It's very dark. It's very dusty. You've got a lot of reflections off not only the racing surface, but the other cars as well. So, I mean, when you look at all the facts here, you're inside a race car with limited vision, looking out of a helmet with tear-offs on it. You've got a driver that's out on the racetrack with a helmet still on, which is he's got bad judgment now, right, not only of where he's at in respect to the other cars.
And this is on the backstretch.
And you got Tony coming around. Looks like that's probably coming out of turn 2. You're not looking for a driver to be on the racetrack. Who knows what Tony was looking at? He could have been looking at a gauge. You have no idea where his vision was at that point. And you can't, the cars are rolling 40, 50 miles an hour. You don't just stop.
Okay, Steve Faria, owner of Thunderbolt Racetrack in Tulare, thank you much for being here. And don't forget about that, it's the Trophy Cup that's coming up in October. Good to see you, Jason.
Thank you. And I just want to, of course, as we mentioned many times, this is a tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the Ward family and to the Stewart family at this point. And
All right.
Just wish them all the best.
All right, out of time. Steve Faria, owner of Thunderbolt, thank you very much. Don't forget about the Trophy Cup in October. Thunderbolt Racetrack in Tulare. Thank you to Jason Myers, a two-time World of Outlaws champion. Back with another edition of Connect with Me tomorrow, live right here at 10 o'clock. See you then. Have a great day.